How was the pool since y'all left me last week?
That was nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Relaxing.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to another week here with us, Foster Commerce. My name is Stephen Callender. I'm the owner.
I'm Darrik Moberg. I'm the current head of engineering of Foster Commerce.
I'm Michael Van Dorth. I am a senior front end and back end developer at Foster Commerce.
Amazing. Well, we've been coming at you this summer with some videos just talking about what we're building this summer. We've got a few things in the works. If you've been following us, then we've got Commerce Reports, which is going to be a reporting plugin for craft commerce. We've got this thing called Variant Manager that we're building and tearing apart and rebuilding. We've got a Nux 3 headless craft commerce build that we're also kind of talking about. But today we're going to talk about Foster Checkout again. And we've got some exciting stuff to kind of show you. So what we're doing with Foster Checkout, right? So for everybody who is just joining us, if you don't know what's happening, Foster Checkout is essentially going to be as much as possible, a plug and play kind of templating system. First for Twig sites. We will have it on our headless sites for like Nux sites and stuff as well. But we're going to start with kind of the Twig sites where you can install this plugin and have templates available for you and give you a solid, usable cart and checkout flow. That will be what's important for us is that not only is that it's easy to kind of install and work with, but that you can kind of brand it. It'll be easy to brand and kind of make it work, kind of put in some of your own configurations. But that also it will be research based and kind of focused on converting and stuff. So it's not just about getting it to work with craft, it's getting it to work for users. So we want it to be best practices along that. And so where we are is we're at this place where we're designing it. We're kind of restarting it with UX design. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So we've got designs that I haven't even really looked at. So Lisa, our UX designer, is working on it kind of as we speak. And so we're going to look at the work that she's done and submitted, and we're just kind of review it together and talk about some of the things that we know some of her decision making. While I even share with Darrik and Michael from there. So let me share it. What we're looking at is a simple cart page. This is the first thing where we're starting with this UX design. And we're obviously just the desktop kind of look for now, but we also have some mobile stuff in here. So first thing that we're doing is just focusing on really this section here. So we're just calling like these product cards. So we're not even thinking about the whole layout or any of that stuff. That's all kind of just placeholder, whatnot for now. So looking at this product card, there's pieces of it that are kind of important. That we're looking at. So clearly you've got the product title at the top, and this section here where the SKU is essentially where there's can be like the SKU, but it can also be other kind of custom data that needs to fill in there. And so it can start to have a height. One thing we're not showing here is like this could stack and get taller, and it doesn't change. It just kind of pushes the card larger, pushes it down. And then some optional like stock information here of like showing the stock so that, you know, for brands to be able to kind of have some communication about the urgency of needing to buy this thing. And then we've got some actions down here. So this idea of if there's a wish list installed, then this would attach to that. So that's a piece that even just in the bit of like how it's going to connect with craft, and if there's another plugin or like how we're going to do that piece is going to be interesting to think about, because that's not just like a native craft commerce thing. And then we've got remove, which is native, popping that here, and then price of the item. And then this is the interesting bit as well, as the quantity. And then you can see the sale price kind of showing up here. If it was on sale, here's the original price. And then the part, is this. So is this quantity bit, which is going to turn into more of buttons. So as you click the one, then the part that was important to me, and then I talked with Lisa about, was when you click one, that you want the plus to be kind of if you're going to double tap, that plus is kind of what you're going for there. And so you would tap either the plus or the delete or minus. So if there's two items in here, it'd be a minus sign there. And so you would tap kind of between either of those and kind of go there. So the delete here is the same thing as remove. So there's the redundant actions available there. But that's it. So that's kind of like what this is.
Yeah, and I actually have thoughts on that part that you brought up, because it's so my concern with the way that's set up now, and I've mentioned this a little bit, off the stream, is that those look like inputs until you click on them. And so from like an accessibility side, that worries me a little bit, because it might be confusing to users to go, oh, I want to change my quantity, and all of a sudden there's a button there. So my thought is maybe we should think about just leaving that the quantity controls just kind of up all the time. I went looking through some different sites, some called out in the research that we were using, just some other ones that I've used, and that tends to be the trend when you have these flows. It's just they're always there. And so maybe that's something we should consider kind of for down the loop, like as we iterate on these designs a little bit. Because I just think it'll be easier for us to implement. And also I think it'll be easier for users to be like, oh, here's how I control this.
Yeah, because then you don't have to get into the whole thing also of like, okay, if I opened one on one product card, when I click on another and open another product card, does that close the other one that I was on? So you don't have to start getting into that sort of thing. We have them always up, and then just the only thing dynamically that's going to change is the minus symbol and the garbage bin, depending on the amount.
Yeah, and that'll also be easier to implement for both like keyboard and screen reader users, right? And other assistive tech users, where when you add in new buttons like that, you then have to handle focus management and communicating the options and stuff like that. If they're just up all the time, you don't have to do that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking for the designs, is like, can we have them open all the time?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it sounds good to me. I mean, it sounds all reasonable, all those things. So I think, something we can tell Lisa and just go from there. Because it'll make a lot of things easier. And I think on mobile, it's one of those things. Obviously, we're not looking at it, but it's one of those things that can just tuck under and be its own row. So if it doesn't crowd up a column space whenever there's limited, real estate width. So
there is a design that I don't think you've seen yet, where I asked Lisa what that would look like. And we can't really show it here right now because that part's still kind of in progress, but we can look at it later.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm super excited about that. Because like drop downs, then you have to figure out if you're gonna stop at number 10, and then like how do you go higher? Like it just drop downs are kind of endless, right?
Yeah. Speaking of that, like, does this have any controls for manual editing? So like if somebody wanted to go from 1 to 20, do they have to click that? Are we expecting them to click that plus button 20 times?
Great question. It probably should. It probably should be an input as well, where that input is editable. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm open to it. I'd probably want to do some more research and see what it like. I know that we have a set of research that we're looking at, and I also want to see like what other accessible patterns are out there for these kinds of inputs. But I think that makes sense to me, or at least have an option for it.
Yeah. Or if you just hold down, you press down, just like my alarm clock. If you just hold it down and it jumps 10.
Yeah, let's do the oven, the oven settings in our website. I'm sure that'll go over well.
Exactly. Okay. Well, that's one bit. Any other things that y'all are seeing?
The other question I had, does it make sense to have all the actions grouped together? So we've got move to wish list and remove kind of separate from like edit quantity. Are we okay with that? Like, I could also see them be like, I have kind of two minds on this. On one, it's like nice to have the quantity right next to the price. It kind of keeps those two things are very connected, and it keeps them together. But I also could see like, oh no, if I'm going to edit the actions in my cart, they also kind of contextually go together. These are the UX questions I'm not as good at.
Yeah. So there might be research about that like on there, but like at least what we were looking at, none of that was specifically addressed. It was more about habit.
Yeah.
So not like the grouping location of it and stuff. So I think,
Yeah.
you know, at that point, where we are is somewhat preference, unless there's research that we're unfamiliar with. So,
yeah.
my
And it was
my
just more of
thought,
like thinking about like user, and like I was looking at other sites, and like, you know, Amazon and similar sites have them all kind of together, but Amazon actually doesn't keep the quantity, or like the quantity in your cart near the price. It's actually near the picture, which is interesting.
I do remember that. Yeah, I remember seeing that. Theirs is on the left side, and they
Yeah.
have a drop down as well, kind of with their cart. But yeah, they all groups it over there. I mean, I think so. Clearly, I've been guiding Lisa a bit on some of these, and at least interacting with her. So like, this one's my preference because I feel like it crowds up the right side, especially if imagine the cart without that only 3 in stock, and imagine it like where maybe they don't even want to show the SKU or like, you know, there's not a lot of information under the title. That right side can start to feel heavy, unless we move the quantity over to the left side, and then
which is how I was imagining it, is moving the quantity to the other grouping and not necessarily the other way around. But yeah, I think it's fine to say it's fine like it is. I just wanted to bring it up because it's like those, thinking about context, like those two and the quantity context are really similar, right? Because you can click these buttons over here on the left, and they'll essentially remove the item from your cart, or you can click these ones on the right and they'll remove the items from your cart. And so that was the only thing I was thinking about.
yeah, yeah. No, I get that, especially from like keyboard and moving
Or
through
zoom,
that
like
thing.
screen magnifiers, right, where they might only see part of it at a time. Those kinds of contexts can be really important, but also mobile, right? Like when you're looking
Yeah.
on your phone, the more you have to reach with your thumb, the more frustrating the experience is.
Yeah. Well, why don't we follow up on that and see? We'll take a look at it, see if Lisa can like, you know, we'll just move it over, fill it in with some other information as well. Like if we had a version of this where there's more product information being shown, like below the SKU, kind of what that looks like. But yeah, I think why don't we look at it, for sure. We can add that to the to-do list for review.
Sure.
Sounds good. What about the image? So like here, we've got a small image. And I know one of the things, so on one of the sites that we've also been building when it comes to the, not during the cart, but during just like a product listing, that we've decided to do, it's more spec heavy. So it's more text driven of like the images don't really guide you, kind of like computers. If you're shopping for computers, what's the difference between, you know, this Dell computer and that Dell computer? You want to read the text, you don't care about the image. And so image center or image, I don't know, image first kind of product cards versus text first product cards, or spec first. Like, what do y'all have thoughts on what we're doing there?
I was just going to ask this question because I think the research we have suggests that you kind of need to support both cases, right? So there are things where the image doesn't matter and you want to leave more room for the text. But like, you know, if we're selling t-shirts, right, with a logo on them or something, or text on them, people want to be able to see that in their cart. So like, do we make the image bigger? How do we make the image bigger? Do we make these cards taller, do you think? Do we squish them kind of like, yeah, what do y'all think for that?
It feels like if the image, so like say, so we'd have to have an option, right? In our faucet checkout, we had to be able to say like large image, small image, and maybe give people 2 options, kind of the way that the layout is. But then that kind of goes back to, I wonder, it feels like then moving the quantity over to the left still makes sense if you're going to have a larger image, because then it doesn't crowd out the third column over on the right too much. Not that it's taking up a lot of space, but yeah, I just feel like it would just make, just naturally grow. So like if it were to come out to here, right, you know, the image is, you know, taking up, I don't know, 25% of the card or something. then all this can kind of stay the same. It just adjusts and will be shorter than the image in that case. And I think that seems very reasonable.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you have a sense on like, yeah, and it's one of those things where it's going to depend from product to product. So, Michael, how would you want to configure that in Craft, since that's kind of your specialty?
Mhm. Well, it could be a setting because we could set up within the companion plugin that comes with the templating thing. That maybe could be an option that we could set during the process. So it's dependent on whatever the product the store is selling, as we say. So if we want a more image-driven one, then have that option, or we want sort of a tech spec one. I don't think we have to. One thing is a product card on the front of the site when the user is purchasing or browsing through the catalog. These are very specific product cards, I think, just for the cart. They're just more of a reassurance that what I selected is in the cart. They don't have, to me, they don't have to be very marketing driven in that sense. They've already have it in their cart. It's more of a confirmation that they're there. So, but to me, then in that case, the more tech spec driven one is more is the more viable approach, because you're just confirming that what you set or what you maybe configured on a certain product is there, and all of that data is there, and that's it. But as you said, the other thing is, like, if it is very image driven, like you said, with a t-shirt with a name on it or something like that, and it needs to be very visual, I think just enlarging the kind of like finding a halfway ground in between the more image centric one and the data centric one, and just like we said, just make that image a bit larger. Maybe a third even could be possible of the width, or a quarter. And I think that would work for both cases, really.
Yeah, we'll add that to the list of designs of like, what does a bigger image look like, and does it still a lot of room for all these details? Speaking of details, one thing I'm wondering is, like, if you had a lot of details, would we want that naturally to sort of call them out? So, like, if I had an SKU, a size, a color, a part number, like a bunch of different information, like how does this layout, how do y'all think this layout handles that? Do we like divide into columns? Do these cards grow really tall? Because that's the one thing that with these like shorter things, it feels like there's a lot of, like, not that empty space is bad, but it does feel like we could use the space more efficiently for more complicated things. But
I think columning it out might be a little bit difficult, because we don't know how long those values are going to be. So you could have like an SKU as a short, whatever, say it's a 10-digit number. Maybe there's sort of a part reference number that has 28 characters, sort of thing like that. And then you're going to put in columning them out. I think is more difficult, because you always run into the problem of we don't know, the content is dynamic. We don't know how big those things are going to be. So I would say stack it and just go from there. Maybe we could put an option in there where if it reaches over a certain amount, there's something you can tap to expand and contract. But at least you see the top options on it.
I think my vote would just be, because hopefully people aren't on the cart page very long, like they're just kind of going through and confirming. So I think just stack it, and it's not a big deal in that sense. So it just stack. But I think the interesting piece for me that I hadn't even thought about before was when you asked this was, it almost feels like we should have a custom field layout like you do in Craft when you're setting up entry types or anything else. You say what field you want to display on the back end, right? But instead we should have like a front end custom field type, because people will decide for themselves what data about this purchasable should be shown. And so in our configuration, we should have some way to say, we want this data shown, we want this variant data shown, we want this product data shown on a variant, on a purchasables, like, card in the checkout page or in the summary pages and stuff. And so that way people can decide possibly even the order of that sub information. And specifically, so if they want to show SKU, they can show the SKU. If they have some like part number, they can show the part number. If they have a brand associated through a category they want to show, they want to make sure that's displayed, then let them show that. Like, let them pick which of the variant or product data is worth showing for them, to make it easy. for them and harder for us.
Harder for us.
Is that something we want in 1.0, or is that something we'd want to push off to a 2.0 or a 1.5 or something,
Yesterday.
depending on like if it needs to be breaking or not?
I don't know yet on that one.
Mm.
Probably not
We
1.0.
could, no, definitely not. I mean, because we have to take into account that, I mean, we tend to use only one product type, but someone else might have 15 product types, and you have to go through and have the settings for all of those product types and the variants on them too.
We will convert them. We're on an effort to get everybody to drop all of their product
One
types.
product type.
And to get Craft to Luke, change the name of it. Not product types. Just call it cataloger. Anyways, I agree. Yeah. I this sounds actually more exciting to me because the more flexibility we can give on that. Because that's where the custom pieces come in. And so I think for 1.0, people can edit and add their own kind of queries to fetch that stuff.
Yeah, right now the templates are just in their sites, right? They just have to edit them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is it okay if we move on to the next one?
I think so.
All right. Dun dun dun. Let me show my screen again. So I forget what's next, but there we go. Okay. This one. The undo. Yes. So this happens. So you'd get this down here. The mini. If you click remove or you hit the delete trash can here, and then you would get this idea. This came from so Baymard research kind of came with this idea. I don't think I've ever seen this in action, and I really like it. But it's this idea of what if they did it by accident? So if they deleted the wrong thing, which I have done before. So this is less about like an actual undo. So like even this part, we might say like, get rid of this undo. And it's more of a link back to that product, because then you can go back and add it to your cart. So at least it gives you a way to go to the thing that you deleted that by accident and come back to it. So that's kind of the debate here, is just like, one, do we want this? Two, do we want the undo option and have some way to kind of know like how to add that thing back to the cart? Or should it just be more basic and just like, no, let them get back to view the cart. So they have to go back to that page, add to the cart, and come back to the cart at that point. So that's kind of the questions that I have, at least.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think the one thing that I want to call out here is that we don't want to make this timed, like a timed undo. Like until they navigate away or repeat the action, I just want this to stay.
I agree.
Again, thinking about like accessibility, anything that's on a timer is not a good is very hard to do correctly for all sorts of users. So I think we just leave this until another action is taken. As far as the undo or not, I could go either way. I like, it's kind of nice to have and probably a small lift to add it, but the only thing I guess I wonder is like the undo and the X next to each other. Like, does that make sense? Do we move the undo over to the left where the other information is?
Yeah, would make sense to me, especially with the text that's next to it saying that was moved from your cart, and then associating that with undo, I think makes more sense. And the X in this case is, to me, it just seems like, okay, yeah, I know what I'm doing. Get rid of this notification for me.
Yeah. It's kind of a confirm, are you sure?
Yes. Yeah, that's what it is. Really. Yeah.
I think, that's a good point about the undo as well. I feel like looking at it closer here, that undo should go underneath at the bottom row. And what do y'all think about it kind of matching the move to wish list and remove up there where it has an icon? Like, like an undo, like you would have in like Word or Google Docs and stuff. And so whatever that back arrow is, and then it not being an underscore. I know this isn't design. This is just UX thing. So it's not a design, but like if we kind of just get that in there with that.
See, I was thinking just put it with the was moved from your cart, undo as a link, like in that context. But it wouldn't be as bold, like it wouldn't be as noticeable then, right? Which might be a problem, but that's kind of what I was thinking of, just like, was removed from your cart, undo in a link as like a secondary action.
Kind of act. So after that sentence, so was remove your cart period undo.
Yep. That's what I was thinking. But yeah, we also could have it with a. It depends how prominent we want the undo button to be. I think is kind of where you're getting into with this.
Yeah.
If it's just like, oh, we did this by accident, I almost would want it visible with the underline, but kind of my first thought is like, but still kind of keep it a little bit subdued. Just so it's like, if somebody did it on purpose, we're not like waving it in their face that, no, wait, you did this wrong. You want to undo this. Yeah. But maybe that's just me.
Yeah. Interesting. I think so. I mean, it's worth looking at, kind of seeing what that looks like visually.
Yeah.
From there.
One thing we should have Lisa look at is the contrast on that was moved from your cart text. It is eyeballing it. It looks a little low, but I won't know until I actually test it.
Yeah. Well, I think definitely because she's also doing a UI. She's doing an example UI for it. So with colors and stuff. And so I think, we kind of get that going. We'll roll with that. We're basically going to do a UI of this that uses kind of Tailwind UI default like e-commerce templates kind of theme, the way we did with our headless .all talk. So that theme is ultimately what we're going to see when it's designed out with colors and whatnot. So I think we definitely should keep our eye on that for sure. I guess my other question is that X, does it need, as long as it has like accessible kind of text and labels underneath it, does it need a label to it, close, or is the X sufficient at this point? I haven't even thought about that. If we're at the point in web usage where an X is clearly what we're doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it depends. It's one of those things where it's like, it probably depends on. It's gonna depend on you. My answer is always gonna be it depends, because, like it is a pretty common pattern for, hey, this thing popped up, use the X to close it, but it's sort of you have to see it kind of in the site and how it appears to know, for me, if that should be clear. Like my inkling is yes, but technically the answer is would actually need to have some users click on it and see what happens.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Well, should we have an undo the undo? So if you click the X, should we make it smaller? Undo. Just joking.
It's where are we going here?
All right. Any other thoughts on the undo?
Is there any sort of planned sort of transition between the two states of this, of something that's in the cart and going and converting into this sort of confirmation that it's been removed? Or is that still ahead? I haven't thought about that yet. How they're going to transition from one to the other visually.
Yeah. No, and unless Lisa's thought about it, I haven't thought about it yet. I think it'll be probably something we solve during front end development and just kind of figure out what that looks like at that point. So finding some natural way to do it that's not jarring.
Yeah. Oh, Michael, you can play with Vue transitions APIs maybe.
Yeah.
It's a new CSS thing, Stephen, to kind of give people the ability to do almost client-side routing without client-side routing, but it also lets you animate things between two different components and stuff.
Yeah, it's like not just page transition, you can do it on the component level as well, which is pretty cool.
Exciting stuff. Hey, it's just me now, because what we decided to do was split this recording that we had talking about our design for the cart page into two. And we're gonna stop it here, and we'll be back next week with the second part of our review of our checkout pages. So thanks for joining in. Just as a reminder, if you haven't subscribed to our newsletter, go ahead and do that. And when you do that, you're going to enter into a drawing to get one of our Foster Commerce t-shirts. And so that'll be worth it. And also you'll be the first to know whenever we drop one of these new videos. You can check out, kind of see what's going on. If you want to be a beta tester for any of our Foster checkout or any of our stuff that we're building out, let us know as well. We can add you to a list to kind of communicate to you when we're ready for you to get us some information on how things are going with using one of our tools. So that's basically where we are. So we will be back next week. See you then.